My mom tried to forge my dad's will for my spoiled sister because she deserves more than the others. Dad shut it down hard. Now they are left with nothing but humiliation and regret. Hey Reddit, so my mom and sister thought they were pulling off the heist of the century, rewriting my dad's will, forging his name, moving money in secret. They figured no one would notice. But they were wrong. Buckle up and let me paint you the picture. I'm Nate Coleman, 27 male, and if you've ever grown up in a house where one person walks on water while the rest of you have to swim, you already know half my story. My dad, Rick, built everything we had from the ground up. Coleman Heating and Air didn't appear out of thin air. He spent 3 decades in the sun, crawling under houses, cutting sheet metal till his hands looked like road maps. Hard work was basically his religion. Mom, Valerie, liked to call herself the glue holding us together. I'd call her more like the PR manager for Brianna Incorporated. Brianna is my younger sister. She's mid-20s, constantly figuring things out, which is code for sleeping in, making big plans, and letting someone else pick up the tab. Mom made sure life handed Brianna the deluxe package. Fewer rules, zero consequences, and a cheerleading squad for every disaster she created. The rest of us, Ethan, Lucas, Jenna, and me, learned early you keep your head down, pay your bills, and don't expect anyone to clap when you do. Brianna, whole different set of rules. Actually, I'm not even sure there were rules. Take the time she rear-ended some poor guy while texting. Not a bump either. A real crunch, airbags and everything. Cops show up, she's crying about how the brakes just failed out of nowhere. Mom swoops in before the tow truck even gets there. Tells the officer the car was basically a death trap, like Toyota personally targeted Brianna with faulty engineering. Pays the ticket, the fine. Even her rideshare while the car's in the shop. Brianna posts a selfie later. Rough week lol like she just survived an earthquake. Or the job that lasted all of 3 shifts. Brianna gets hired at some boutique downtown. Folding clothes, ringing up customers. Day 3, she sleeps through her shift because mornings are toxic. Manager writes her up. Mom storms in like the building's on fire. Says the schedule was confusing and maybe management should be clearer with expectations. Talks so long the manager ends up apologizing. Write-up disappears. Brianna quits the next week because retail isn't her vibe. And then there were the bills. Brianna racks up late fees on her phone plan, buying premium apps and whatever else she wastes time on. Mom quietly moves money from the joint account to cover it, then tells the rest of us the utilities were high that month. Meanwhile, Dad's out there in the rain fixing AC units, and Brianna's dropping cash on digital unicorn skins or whatever nonsense she buys. That's how it always went. Brianna stumbles, Mom cleans it up, Dad keeps working, and the rest of us learn to stay out of the way. Sunday lunch was the one time everyone showed up. Roast beef, potatoes, the whole spread. Dad's talking about the shop needing new duct benders before winter. Ethan's asking to borrow the trailer. Brianna's scrolling through her phone, nails tapping the screen like she's drafting a press release. Out of nowhere, she says, well, once things are official, I won't have to stress about money anymore. Everything goes quiet. Dad looks up. Official? She smirks. You'll see. Mom gave her this tiny shake of the head, like not now, but the damage is done. Ethan glances at me. Lucas raises an eyebrow. Jenna just keeps cutting her food real slow. I didn't say anything. Just took another bite because silence in this house keeps the blood pressure down. But official? That stuck. Brianna didn't keep secrets unless she was getting something out of it. After lunch, I'm clearing plates when Mom reminds Brianna she left her laptop on Dad's desk again. Brianna shrugs, says she needed to print something. I ask what. She smirks. Don't worry about it, Detective Nate. Mom laughs like that's the funniest thing she's heard all week. Here's what you need to know about Dad. He doesn't complain, doesn't care about appearances. Spends his life building something real, so his kids wouldn't have to break their backs like he did. I've seen him come home soaked in sweat just to have Mom hand him another bill from whatever mess Brianna created this time, and he always paid it. Always. But official didn't sound like bills or jobs or anything Brianna usually avoided talking about. It sounded like something already in motion, something Mom knew about and Dad didn't. That about summed up the family. Dad working, Mom covering, Brianna coasting, and me wondering when the storm was going to hit. Turned out, it was closer than I thought. The 3 days after that Sunday lunch, I swung by the house to drop off some invoices for Dad. It was late afternoon. Nobody home except the dog. Dad was still at the shop, Mom's car gone, and Brianna's purple Jeep parked sideways like she invented reckless parking. I cut through the living room and headed for Dad's study to leave the paperwork on his desk. This time, it was Mom's laptop sitting there, screen still glowing. Normally, I wouldn't care. But after that official comment from Brianna, something in me said check. On the desktop, right there in plain sight, was a file called Revised Will Final. I opened it, and what I saw made my stomach drop like a bad elevator. This wasn't a rough draft. This wasn't notes. This thing had signatures, dates, legal language I didn't even know Mom could Google. And right there in black and white, Dad's business, the savings account, the house, all funneled to Brianna. Me, Ethan, Lucas, Jenna, a couple token amounts, just enough to keep it from looking like she cut us out completely. I scrolled back up and looked at Dad's signature at the bottom. It looked like his, but off. The spacing was wrong. The letters too stiff. I knew his real one from years of seeing it on paychecks and permission slips. This looked like someone tried to copy it with their non-dominant hand. I printed a copy, snapped photos on my phone. My heart was pounding so hard the dog got up like we had company. That night, I waited until Dad got home and showed him in the garage. I thought he was going to explode. Instead, he went quiet. Scary quiet. He read every page twice, jaw tight, eyes moving slow. Then he folded the paper in half real neat, like it was just another bill. First thing tomorrow, he said finally. We lock up the originals. Birth certificates, property deeds, everything. Nobody touches anything till I say. No yelling, no panic. Just calm like he was tightening bolts on a sinking ship. We did exactly that the next morning. Hauled everything out of the house. Old will, bank documents, even the shop lease, and locked it all in the big safe at work. Dad changed the combination. I set up two-factor authentication on his email and bank logins while he watched. By the time Mom got home, the house looked the same, but the power balance wasn't. That evening, Dad walked into the living room holding the printout. Mom was folding laundry. Brianna was on the couch scrolling through her phone like always. Care to explain this? Dad said, holding it up. Mom looked over, stopped folding. Where did you get that? On your laptop, Dad said flat. Where else? Brianna barely glanced up. It's not a big deal, Dad. You always overreact. Dad ignored her and looked straight at Mom. What were you thinking? Did you think I wouldn't find out? Mom tried to pull the calm voice she uses when she's clearly guilty. It's just ideas, Rick. I was drafting some things to talk about later. Drafting? Dad snapped. You put my name on it? That's not drafting, that's forgery. Brianna rolled her eyes like this was some huge inconvenience for her. I don't get why you're freaking out. Everyone knows the shop should come to me. I'm the one who'll actually use the money. I laughed out loud. Couldn't help it. Yeah, use it on what? More nail polish and speeding tickets? She glared. You're just mad because you can't control everything. Dad cut her off. Enough. This isn't about control. It's about honesty. Mom's voice went sharp then. She needs more help than the others. Ethan and Lucas have jobs. Jenna's fine. Brianna deserves a chance. Dad shook his head. She deserves a job, Valerie. Not a free pass. Brianna grabbed her keys like she was the one being betrayed here. Whatever. This family's toxic, she muttered, walking out like a reality show contestant. That night, Dad sat at the kitchen table with a legal pad. He wrote down everything we needed to do. New will, new neutral trustee, bank safeguards, names of lawyers, phone numbers. He handed me half the list. Start tomorrow, he said. You sure? I asked. He nodded. If they're willing to fake my name, they're willing to sign and notarize it too. We lock this down before it gets worse. He didn't look angry anymore, just tired, like he'd been carrying something heavy for too long, and finally set it down. I told him I'd handle the lawyer call in the morning, because whatever this was turning into, it wasn't going to end with Brianna and Mom running the show. Not a chance. The next morning, Dad and I got to the shop early. Not work early, paranoid early. We weren't here for duct orders or payroll. We were here for security. Dad didn't even talk much on the drive. He was gripping the steering wheel like it had personally offended him. I just sipped my gas station coffee and kept my mouth shut because I could tell his brain was already 10 steps ahead. At the shop, we dug out every important document we owned. Birth certificates, house deeds, old wills, insurance papers. The kind of stuff you forget exists until someone tries to forge your name on it. Everything went into the big fireproof safe in Dad's office. Need to lock it down tight, he muttered. Nobody gets near this except me. Good, I said, because apparently we're living with Ocean's 11 over there. That got the faintest smirk out of him before he shut the safe. By 9 a.m., we were on the phone with Pat Morgan, Dad's lawyer. Pat's the type who sounds like he's been tired since birth, but still knows exactly what to do. We told him about the forged will, the fake signature, all of it. First thing, he said, Freeze any account your wife has access to. If she moves money before we act, it's a nightmare to untangle. Dad looked at me. You handle that. I spent the next hour on hold with 2 banks, getting access locked down like we were guarding nuclear codes. By the time we were done, Mom wouldn't be able to move $5 without Dad knowing. Pat set a meeting for later in the week to start drafting a new will, one with ironclad safeguards, so this wouldn't happen again. Meanwhile, I started watching things more closely at home. Mom was on her phone a lot, texting, whispering in the kitchen, ducking into the hallway when she saw me coming, and Brianna, acting smug as hell, like she knew something we didn't, like she'd already won. But then the first real red flag popped up. Dad got an alert from the bank about a large transfer draft on one of the joint accounts. Memo line just said investment, amount big enough to hurt if it went through. Dad called the bank. Transfer hadn't been processed yet. He killed it on the spot. That night, Mom said she was going to see a friend. Didn't say which one. Left in a hurry. I told Dad I was going to follow her. You don't have to. Yeah, I said, grabbing my jacket. I do. I stayed a couple cars back. She drove across town, straight to Brianna's apartment. Parked, went inside carrying a big folder. An hour later, she came out empty-handed. Next morning, over breakfast, I asked casually, "Hey, Mom, what were you doing at Brianna's last night?" She froze for half a second, then went right back to buttering her toast. "Visiting my daughter. I don't need permission to see my own child." "Didn't say you did," I replied. "Just curious what was in the folder." She didn't look up. "You're paranoid." Dad set his coffee down hard enough to rattle the spoon. "If you're moving papers around without telling me, we've got a problem." Mom's voice went sharp. "Oh, so now I need your approval for everything?" "No," Dad said. Calm, but firm. "But you do when it involves my estate." She shoved her chair back and left the table like we were the unreasonable ones. Later that day, Dad called Pat again. "Time to bring in a forensic expert," he said. "If they push that fake will through with a signature and notary, I want proof it's forged before they even try." Pat agreed. Said he'd line up someone who could analyze the signature on the revised will compared to Dad's real ones. That way, if things went nuclear, and let's be honest, they were headed that way, we'd have hard evidence. Meanwhile, Brianna started running her mouth more. She made a crack on social media about big changes coming with a winky face. Real subtle. Ethan sent me a screenshot. "What's this about?" he texted. "Nothing good," I replied. Lucas texted right after. "She acting like she owns the place already?" "Pretty much," I said. Dad saw the screenshot, shook his head, and went back to work like he didn't have time for her theatrics. 2 nights later, I caught Mom on the phone in the laundry room, voice low, saying something about get it signed and notarized before he notices. I didn't even wait this time. Walked right in, leaned on the doorframe. "Getting what signed?" I asked. She jumped like she didn't realize I was there. "Private call," she snapped. "Not when it sounds like fraud, it isn't," I said. She hung up without another word and pushed past me. By the end of that week, Pat was already lining up a forensic expert to tear it apart and the new will in motion. Mom was getting jumpy. Brianna kept acting like she had a victory speech ready to go. But the way I saw it, they were just digging themselves in deeper. Because once that report came back proving the signature was fake, they weren't going to be able to talk their way out of it. And I was going to make sure everyone knew it. The timing couldn't have been better. A few days after I caught Mom whispering in the laundry room, Aunt Carla decided to host a big family cookout. Everyone was coming. Cousins, uncles, aunts, the whole circus. Dad didn't want to go at first. Said he wasn't in the mood for small talk. But I told him this was perfect. If Mom and Brianna wanted to play games behind closed doors, fine. We'd shine a big old spotlight on their mess. So Saturday rolls around. The backyard's packed. Kids running around, grill smoking, people laughing over beer and potato salad. But all I'm thinking about is that forged will sitting in Pat's office, the forensic expert already tearing it apart, and Brianna strutting around like she owned the place. And of course, she showed up late like it was her entrance music playing. She walked in wearing sunglasses even though it was cloudy, hugging people like she was running for office. Mom followed right behind her carrying a tray of deviled eggs, smiling that tight smile she uses when she knows people are watching. I looked at Dad. He just shook his head and went back to flipping burgers. It didn't take long before Brianna started dropping her little hints. She was over by the picnic table talking to 2 of our cousins about big changes coming to the family business. Said stuff like, "Yeah, Dad's finally realizing it's time for the next generation to take over." I was standing close enough to hear it all. One cousin nodded politely. The other looked confused because Brianna's never worked a day in that shop. Closest she's been to HVAC work is when the AC broke in her apartment, and Dad paid for the repair guy. Dad heard her too. He didn't say anything, just kept manning the grill like his life depended on those burgers coming out right. Then Brianna said the one thing that made his shoulders tense up. I won't have to beg him for money anymore, she told them, like it was some big joke. Once this is official, things will finally be fair around here. Fair. That word must have hit Dad like a hammer, because I saw his hand tighten around the spatula. He just stared at the grill, jaw working like he was chewing rocks. I walked over to help him. You good? I asked under my breath. He nodded once, eyes still on the food. Finish these for me, he said finally. I need a minute. He disappeared for a while after that. When he came back, his face looked different, like he'd made a decision. Dinner went on as usual. Kids yelling, people asking for more napkins, someone complaining the potato salad was too salty. But under it all, there was this weird current, like everyone could feel something was about to happen. Sure enough, after we ate, Dad stood up in front of everyone. Family, he said, voice steady. I need a few minutes. Conversations died down. Even the kids got quiet. He didn't waste time. Some of you may have heard rumors about changes to my will, he said. I want to make something clear. There was a document drafted behind my back with a forged signature. I did not write it. I did not sign it. And I will not stand for it. You could have heard a pin drop. Mom's smile froze. Brianna went red, then pale, then red again. Dad didn't call them out by name, but he didn't have to. Everyone knew exactly who he meant. I've already locked down the accounts, he went on. A new will is being finalized with legal safeguards in place. And if anyone tries something like this again, there will be consequences. Brianna finally snapped. This is so dramatic, she said loudly. We were just trying to make things fair. You always favor the others over me. Some of the cousins looked at each other like, is she serious right now? Dad turned slowly toward her. You call forgery fair? He asked. Voice calm. Too calm. She didn't answer. Mom tried to jump in then. We were only thinking about Brianna's future, she said. And not your other kids? Dad asked. That shut her up fast. Ethan spoke up from the picnic table. Sounds like you were thinking about your bank account, not her future. Lucas added, yeah, real smooth announcing your master plan at a cookout. Jenna didn't say anything, just shook her head like she couldn't believe the stupidity on display. Brianna grabbed her purse. Mom followed her, hissing under her breath about how Dad was embarrassing them in front of everyone. But the damage was done. The whole family knew now. The whispers started before they even reached their car. After they left, Dad sat back down like nothing happened. Ate another burger. Didn't say a word for the rest of the night. But later, when we were loading the truck, he looked at me and said, call Pat tomorrow. Let's get the final report now. I want everything in writing before this gets any messier. I nodded. On it. Because at this point, it wasn't just about stopping them. It was about ending this for good. Monday morning, Dad called Pat first thing. No small talk, no weather chat. Just, get the expert. Let's finish this. Pat didn't waste time. By Wednesday, doctor. Melissa Grant, a forensic document analyst who looked like she ate forged signatures for breakfast, was sitting in Pat's office with a folder full of Dad's legitimate signatures for comparison. She studied the fake will copy I'd printed. Barely 5 seconds in, she was already marking spots with a red pen. See that curve? She said. Real signatures have rhythm. This one's stiff, like someone slowed down trying to copy it. She circled the date line. Spacing's off here. Pressure's inconsistent. Whoever did this rushed it. Quick pause, fellas. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up, and it keeps even crazier stories coming your way. Thanks so much for your support. All right, back to the drama. Dad sat stone-faced the whole time. Me? I was mentally filing every word under Exhibit A for family court. While the expert did her thing, Mom and Brianna were getting bolder. Mom acted like nothing was happening, making small talk at dinner, asking Dad about his day, fake cheerful like we hadn't caught her with a felony starter pack. Brianna started posting vague quotes on social media about betrayal and family drama, like she was the victim of some Shakespeare tragedy. Then came the phone calls. Aunt Carla told me Mom had been calling relatives, crying about how Dad was changing everything, because I was turning him against his own family. Yeah, I told Carla. Funny how I didn't forge anyone's signature, though. She didn't argue. Friday, Dr. Grant's official report came in. 100% forged. No ambiguity. She listed every inconsistency. Slant angles, pen pressure, line quality. Stuff I didn't even know existed. It was brutal. Pat grinned when he read it. They don't have a leg to stand on. If they push this, it's going to blow up in their faces. Dad nodded slowly. Good. Then we move forward. By Saturday, word was spreading in the family. People knew something was up, and Mom didn't like losing control of the story. She cornered me in the kitchen while Dad was outside on the phone. You're enjoying this, aren't you? She snapped. Enjoying what? I asked. Turning your father against his own wife and daughter. I laughed. Yeah, because you forging his signature had nothing to do with it. Her face went red. You've always hated Brianna. This is about jealousy. I grabbed a soda from the fridge. No, this is about fraud. But sure, let's call it jealousy if it makes you feel better. She stormed off, muttering about how ungrateful we all were. Brianna wasn't any better. That evening, she showed up at the house uninvited, acting like nothing was wrong. Sat on the couch scrolling her phone while Mom loudly complained to her about how Dad was ruining the family. I finally asked, So Brianna, when you were planning to inherit everything, were you going to hire me at least? Or was I getting a cardboard box outside the shop? She smirked. Maybe if you learned some respect. Right, I said. Because nothing says respect like forging Dad's name. She rolled her eyes. You're all so dramatic. Sunday morning, Dad called a family meeting. Ethan, Lucas, Jenna, everyone showed. He handed out copies of the forensic report like a teacher passing back failed exams. This, he said, is proof my signature was forged. I wanted you all to see it before the lawyers take the next steps. Mom shifted uncomfortably. Brianna crossed her arms, glaring at the floor. Ethan read the first page and whistled. Wow, they didn't even try to hide it. Lucas looked at Brianna. You thought this was going to work? She snapped, You don't understand. No, Jenna said calmly. We understand perfectly. Pat was on speakerphone. With this report, the court will reject any challenge automatically. If they try to contest the new will, this evidence shuts it down before it starts. Mom muttered, We were just planning ahead. Dad looked right at her. You were planning to steal my life's work behind my back. She didn't answer. After the meeting, Dad told me we were filing the injunction Monday morning. Legal freeze on everything. No changes, no transfers, no filings without court oversight. That's it, he said. They're done playing games. I nodded, because now it wasn't just tension anymore. It was war. Beam. The legal freeze hit Monday morning. Pat notified every bank and registrar. No funds moved, no titles touched, and a court-appointed neutral fiduciary, not me, not Mom, not Dad, would supervise the estate until the case was resolved. They're boxed in now, Pat said over the phone. If they even sneeze in the wrong direction, we'll know. Dad just grunted and hung up. He wasn't celebrating, not yet. He wanted this mess over, permanently. But Mom and Brianna weren't taking the loss quietly. By Tuesday, my phone started buzzing with calls from relatives. Apparently, Mom had launched a full-blown pity campaign. She was calling anyone with a pulse, telling them Dad was letting the kids turn him against his own wife and daughter. She said you're manipulating him, Aunt Carla told me. Yeah? I said. Did she also tell you about the bank account she tried to drain? Carla paused. No, she left that part out. Of course she did. Meanwhile, Brianna went full drama queen on social media, posting cryptic quotes about fake family and snakes in the grass, like she was starring in some Netflix special instead of throwing tantrums over money that wasn't even hers. By midweek, Dad had enough. He called a family meeting at the house for Wednesday night, said it was time to set the record straight in front of everyone. Ethan, Lucas, Jenna, a few close relatives, Aunt Carla, they all showed. Even Mom came, dragging Brianna behind her, like this was their chance to win an Oscar for Most Misunderstood Victims. Dad waited until everyone was seated before speaking. Let's be clear, he said, voice steady. The new will is drafted. A court-appointed neutral trustee controls everything for now, so nobody, including me, can change a thing without the court. Brianna shot out of her chair. That's not fair, she snapped. You can't just shut us out like this. Fair? Ethan leaned back, arms crossed. You tried to hijack everything. How's that fair? Mom jumped in, her voice sharp. We were planning for the future. This family used to make decisions together. Dad turned to her slowly. You stopped making this about family the second you went behind my back. She went red but didn't answer. Then the rest of us spoke up, and honestly, it felt like years of frustration boiling over. Lucas told Brianna she hadn't worked a real job in her life, and yet expected to be handed everything Dad built. Jenna called out Mom for always covering Brianna's messes, saying, You've been bailing her out since high school, and she's learned nothing. Even Ethan, who usually stays out of drama, said, I've kept my mouth shut long enough. You two have been bleeding Dad dry for years, while acting like it's owed to you. Brianna's face went pale, then red, then pale again. The best part? The relatives Mom had called earlier, trying to get sympathy, were sitting right there watching the whole thing. I saw their faces change as they realized they'd been fed half the story. One uncle actually asked, "Wait, is it true about the bank account?" Dad nodded. Every word. That's why the injunction's in place. They can't touch a cent. The whispers started immediately. Mom knew she was losing the audience fast. So Brianna went nuclear. "This is ridiculous," she yelled. "You're all jealous because Dad actually wants to help me. You can't stand that I'm the favorite." "No," Jenna said flatly. "We can't stand that you act entitled to everything while contributing nothing." Brianna looked like she was about to throw something. Mom tried one last guilt trip. "Rick, you're letting them turn you against me after everything I've done for this family." Dad didn't even blink. "You turned me against you when you tried to take what wasn't yours." That shut her up. Finally, Dad laid it all out. "Here's how it's going to be," he said. "If anyone tries to fight this in court, they'll lose. Next time there's drama, it won't be in my living room. It'll be in front of a judge." Mom grabbed her purse, muttering about betrayal. Brianna stormed out behind her, yelling something about how this wasn't over. But everyone knew it was. After they left, the room was quiet for a long moment. Then Aunt Carla said, "Well, guess we know the truth now." Ethan looked at Dad. "You did the right thing. About time someone stopped them." Dad didn't smile, didn't celebrate, just gathered the papers and said, "It's almost over, one way or another, because this wasn't just cleanup anymore. This was the part where karma was finally going to hit back." The night of the family meeting, after Mom and Brianna stormed out, Dad didn't even sit down. He stood by the window for a long time, arms crossed, just watching their taillights disappear. Finally, he turned to me and said, "Call Pat tomorrow. I want to know what divorce paperwork looks like." It wasn't angry. It wasn't loud. It was calm in a way that told me this wasn't some heat-of-the-moment thing. "Are you sure?" I asked. Dad nodded. "She burned this down herself. I'm just clearing the ashes." So the next morning, he called Pat, explained everything. Years of entitlement, manipulation, then the forged will stunt as the final nail. Pat didn't even hesitate. With the evidence Dad already had, this would move fast. By the time I got home from the shop that evening, the first steps were already in motion. Dad was done living with someone who'd treat him like a walking bank account. That's when Mom and Brianna launched their smear campaign. They called every relative with working cell service, spinning a story about how Dad was abandoning his family and letting the kids poison him against his wife and daughter. According to them, he was throwing them out with nothing, leaving poor Brianna destitute. Might have worked if Dad hadn't already told Pat to release the receipts. Every time someone called asking what was going on, Dad calmly forwarded the bank alerts, showing Mom trying to move money, the failed court petition, and the timeline of everything leading up to the mess. Relatives who had originally sided with Mom started backing away fast. Brianna didn't take it well. When the sympathy dried up, she switched to rage posting on social media. Stuff like, "Some people will throw away family for money? Funny how the fake ones always win. One day, they'll regret losing me." Comments started turning on her almost immediately. People asked simple things like, "Didn't your dad pay for your car?" Or, "Didn't he cover your rent for years?" Someone even said, "So what exactly did you expect to inherit after not working for anything?" She deleted half the posts by the end of the week. The courtroom moment came fast. Mom's lawyer filed a motion to oppose the injunction and undo the account freezes, arguing Dad was acting unfairly. The judge didn't buy it. Pat handed over the documentation, the blocked bank transfers, the forensic report, the witness statements, everything. The judge skimmed the file, looked at Mom's lawyer, and denied the motion at the very first hearing. Done before lunch. "Frivolous petition," the judge said flatly. Mom and Brianna left the courthouse red-faced, refusing to look at anyone. The divorce filing followed right after. With the evidence already stacked high, it wasn't complicated. Dad filed for separation, citing financial misconduct, deceit, and the fact that their marriage was effectively over the second she tried to rewrite his life behind his back. Mom didn't get the house, didn't get the business. Beyond what the law required, she walked away with nothing else. Brianna? Zero. Not even the conditional trust Dad had offered before. She torched that bridge herself. The best part came a month later. I heard through the grapevine that Mom and Brianna had moved in together. Thought it would be some kind of girls against the world setup. Lasted about 3 weeks before cracks showed. Bills, groceries, rent. Apparently, when you're used to someone else paying for everything, splitting costs feels like a personal attack. Jenna heard Brianna even tried hitting up a distant relative for a small loan, to cover her car insurance. He told her to get a job like everyone else. Ethan ran into one of Brianna's old friends, who said she used to brag about never having to work because Dad would take care of her forever. Yeah, about that. When the divorce finalized, the court dissolved the neutral appointment and returned full control of the house and business to Dad. Because the assets and misconduct were documented and the terms uncontested, the judge fast-tracked the case and entered final orders within weeks. Dad got full control of the estate, the house, and the business. Mom and Brianna got the fallout they'd earned. Friends who used to defend them quietly disappeared. Relatives stopped inviting them to anything. Even online, people stopped engaging with Brianna's passive-aggressive posts once the truth was out. It was like watching two people slowly realize they weren't victims. They were the problem. One evening, after everything wrapped up, I found Dad at the shop sitting on the tailgate of his work truck. Sun was setting, sky turning orange over the parking lot. Jenna had just stopped by with her kids. She hugged Dad and told him, "We're proud of you. You handled all this better than any of us could have." He didn't say much, just nodded, sipping his Coke, looking tired but lighter. For the first time in months, the man looked like he could finally breathe. Brianna faded out of the picture after that. Last I heard, she was bouncing between jobs, apartments, and short-lived relationships, still blaming everyone but herself. Mom kept a low profile too. The relatives she'd lied to never really forgave her for dragging them into her drama. Funny how people who scream the loudest about family loyalty are always the first to cash out when it suits them. Dad rebuilt. Not just his will or the accounts, those were locked down tighter than ever, but his peace of mind. New guys at the shop, first vacation in years, dinners with friends he hadn't seen in forever. For the first time in a long time, he looked like himself again. That's how it ended. No big speeches, no victory laps, just Dad with his life back, the rest of us with the family business safe, and Mom and Brianna left sitting in the wreckage they made for themselves. Karma doesn't always show up on time, but when it does, it shows no mercy.